And I'd like to begin with a prayer in support of our time together today and on our evolution. And then Peter will be introducing our guest, Dr. Scott. So this is a prayer for compassion. We pray for all who are in pain and all who cause pain. We pray for those of us who are so angry that we have lost compassion for the suffering of anyone who is not a member of our group. We pray for those of us who cannot see the suffering behind the loss of that compassion. We pray for the strength to resist the urge to inhumanity that we feel in times of fear and mourning. We pray for the courage to resist the calls to inhumanity that others may make upon us in times of crisis. May we find relief from our hurts and fears. May we not in our pain, and may we not in our pain lose our empathy for the hurts and fears of others. We pray for all who are in pain and all who cause pain. Amen. I thought that would be really appropriate for what's going on right now in our earth lives. So I'm going to turn this over to Peter, who will introduce his companion, friend, and colleague, Dr. Scott.
All right. Dr. Scott Robinson is a multidisciplined healthcare professional. Oh, start over again, Peter. Dr. Scott Robinson is a multidisciplined healthcare practitioner and healer who had count them two, near-death experiences. These NDEs help Scott go on a mission to help people learn how to heal themselves physically, emotionally, and spiritually. By way of background, when he was a teenager, Scott was pronounced dead on arrival following an automobile accident and placed in the morgue. 2 hours later, he woke up when his parents came to identify his body. 18 years later, Scott would die again, this time while under anesthesia. On leaving his body, he was informed by those who met him from the light that he could not stay in heaven because it was not yet his time to die. Scott was told that he was to remain on Earth and learn a simple technique to heal himself and then share that technique with other people. His new book, There Are No Lines in Heaven, describes over 425 modalities, including past life regression, to improve your well-being. During today's presentation, Scott will talk about past life regression therapy from the near-death experience perspective. Why are we here? And what is our mission or purpose in this life? He'll also talk about verbal frequencies for healing, how to release emotions quickly and easily that no longer serve you. In addition, he'll focus on 2 astrology signs that can cause us difficulty in accepting change or letting go of the past. Plus, Scott will describe even more tools that you can use to help improve your health and your life now. So please, let's give Scott a warm welcome from our colleagues at IBRT. Scott, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. I've known Peter. We were just talking about that for about 13 years. And yes, Peter's in the book. I actually have an entire section about alternative, complementary, integrative, and spiritual medicine with Peter behind the pen. And we talk about Peter through the IANS perspective because I've known him through Barbara Bartolome, who's the president of IANS out of Santa Barbara. And I've had the pleasure of staying with Peter and his partner at their home, not only while I was working with clients there, but when I was doing lectures over the last couple of years. And I moved from California and I moved to Florida, where I found it was much more advantageous for me to use and discuss God, spirituality, and healing with patients from that perspective, because in California it became illegal. I could no longer practice as a doctor in California. I was a medical examiner for the state of California, Division of Workers' Compensation, and I could not discuss God with my clients without fear of loss of license. So I asked God, what was I supposed to do? And I heard, move. And I had done a lecture for Peter, and I'd just come back from Orlando, where my editor lives, and I had seen 30 patients in 5 days. And it was at your talk, Peter, on the 13th of December 2 years ago that I heard, you know where to go. And that was Orlando. So on the way home, if you remember, I had a toothache that night. And teeth deals with certain things, and each tooth deals with a certain issue. And it seemed like every time I came to Santa Barbara, I had a tooth issue every time I was up there to do a talk. So let's begin at the beginning. Peter gave you a little reference. I've died twice. I have actually 7 doctorates after my name. Holly and I were talking about that. It gets to the point I call it my alphabet soup. I did not do it for ego and greed. Let's face it, I got bored and I kept going back to school. And here's how that happened. When I was 17 years old, I was expected to go to the military academy and take over where my father had left off as a pilot in the Air Force. I, though, was going to take a different route. I was going to go through the Navy, go through the Naval Academy. But 3 days after high school graduation, my dad gave me a used car. He worked in the car industry in Jerome Avenue in the Bronx. And he gave me this wonderful used car, which was great for a teenager. It had the old bench seats, the 68 Mercury Montego, if you remember that. Big door, big bench seats, big engine under the hood. It was a great pickup car for a 17-year-old. 3 days afterwards, I was going to go to Lake Opakon in New York, New Jersey on the border and go fishing because I'd never been fishing. And my buddy from high school um, invited me to go fishing. Okay, let's go. I pick him up 5 o'clock in the morning, get on the highway. I feeling really strange, like something out of a movie. I can't remember the name of it, but this guy's on a bicycle and he's an athlete and he goes into a tunnel and the angel grabs him and takes him away before he gets hit by a bus. But the angel goes, oops, he could have gotten out of the way and I didn't need to take him. So they have to put him in another body. Do you remember what the name of that movie was? It'll come to me in a moment.
Heaven Can Wait.
Heaven Can Wait. It comes from another movie in the 30s about a boxer. Anyway, long story short, I felt kind of strange. Looked down, I could see through my hands. I'm driving now and I'm looking through my hands. I'm going, if this is death, there's nothing to be afraid of. I would drive the next 23 miles without any memory or recollection. Next thing I know, I'm waking up hearing a police officer say, he's DOA, and I'm out of my body. So what happened? Car spun, we got hit. I don't know what happened. I have no idea because the man that was with me, Lou, was sleeping in the right side. I'm driving. And next thing I know, a quick split second, I am underneath the dashboard with my head jammed up into the window and the other part of my head against the door frame with the door opening and the police officer saying he's DOA. All right, I cross out, go above. I'm above the earth now. And I realize my guardian angel is there. And the guardian angel asks me to turn around before we go to heaven and say, go and look at what's on coming up from the earth. Tell me what you see. So I see little tiny strands of light coming up from the earth, going up to this invisible cloud that I never saw before, but suddenly I can see a cloud around the earth. And then I see some of these are big, like big tree trunks. And he said, do you know what those are? I said, no. He said, the small ones are individual prayers, and the big ones are multiple prayers for the same thing or the same person. I said, oh, very interesting. He said, okay, we got to go now. And next thing I know is the light just went going by me like I'm in a tunnel. You know, you see a flashing light like you're in the back of the car, and the light, you're doing 100 miles an hour, and things are just blurred right by you. I arrive on the other side, and I meet my grandfather. And I know it's my grandfather because he dies 2 years before my birth. And I had only seen pictures of him. And he meets me at heaven and he says, you can't stay here. You don't belong. You have to go back to fulfill your purpose and missions in life. You go, oh, this is a great place. Why do I have to go back? And he said, but before you go back, I have someone for you to meet. And he takes me into a room and there's 3 beings. 2 of them are big archangels and they're facing me. And one is with his back towards me, and I see the back of him with his wavy brown hair. And he turns around and I say, "Are you the being everybody calls Jesus?" And he said, "Because of your background, I'm not only Jewish, but I am on my mom's side part of the Kohanim, the class of priests coming down from the time of Aaron and of Moses and Aaron. So in her side of the line, I am of the priestly class. And I'm also in the line of David, which when Jesus now says, I'm called by many names, but because of your heritage, I will call you the little prince of peace, and you can call me big brother. I went, oh, wow. He said, I couldn't stay because I have to fulfill my purpose in life. When one of the other angels, not Michael, who was directly behind him, but this other angel said, you will learn a simple technique to heal yourself and share that with other people. And he said, oh, by the way, when you learn who I am not what they call my body. Okay. Come back. And again, Jesus says you can't stay. I go, ah, shoot. And I get pulled back into my body. I wake up on in the morgue. But meanwhile, my mom and dad are called by the same officer who pronounced me dead at the scene. They come to the morgue door. They go down the hall. The lights are out. They don't know why. There's nobody at the front desk. Where's my son? Where's my son's body? Because the police officer said, come identify your son's body. He's been in an accident. He didn't say he was dead. Come identify your son's body. They walk down the hall. They see someone wearing scrubs. They were blue. These are green. And they walk down, going to ask that man because he's pushing a body on a gurney. And he's pushing it into the refrigeration unit. And if you know some of these gurneys, they're metal and they slide into an open refrigerator and then they slide onto a tray and the wheels fold up and you close the door. So they go down and to ask this man, where's my son's body? And as they get closer, he vanishes, disappears. Now the light was out in the hallway. So my mom and dad were kind of confused. How could we both miss him? He just disappeared. They thought, well, maybe the darkness of the hallway, there was a door in that dark area where the light was out. Thank goodness that light was out. I'll tell you why in a minute. And they thought, well, maybe he must have gone up the steps real quick and we just didn't see him. It was a blink. They come to this body because they don't know where their son is. And they pull the shroud off and there I am. Hey, mom. Hey, dad. I sit up. I just met grandpa. I met God. I remember that well. And they said, son, you had a head injury. Come with us. I went, okay. And then I realized I had the worst headache. I still have a dent in my head where I hit the door handle. Mom and dad take me off the table, walk me down the hallway, which I'm so glad that light was out. It's almost like the angel planned it. And because I couldn't see, they put me in the back of the car, couldn't tolerate light, had the worst headache. And probably if that light was on, I would have vomited right then. Take me to Montefiore Hospital in New York because my dad works in Jerome Avenue in the Bronx, 2 blocks from Yankee Stadium on one side, Montefiore Neurology Center down the other direction. I get to meet a doctor who had just read the book Life After Life by Raymond Moody. And he said, Scott, can't tell you exactly what happened to you, but all your readings are off the charts. Your DMT level, your dimethyltryptamine, is way high. That's a blood test, talks about your pineal gland, and dimethyltryptamine is a hallucinogen and a painkiller. And it's the way the NIH or the National Institutes of Health indicate if somebody's had a real, true near-death experience. What happens in a true near-death experience, DMT levels never go back to normal. They stay at least 20% higher than normal, and mine stayed at 22% above the norm. You see, one of the things I learned about a near-death experience is not only we have the two-brain being, but there's beings out there that come from other worlds that are three-brain beings, as well as a one-brain being. And some of these beings, their third brain is actually an enlarged pineal gland. But if you go back and you look at things in pyramids, you'll actually see Egyptian pyramids where the rulers are holding on to a pineal gland and indicating that the way you connect to the source energy is through the third eye, pineal gland. So I digress a little bit and I go back. Now, I'm told that I would be some type of helper and healer. Before my near death experience, I had the ability to help people bet and gamble on games. I had psychic intuitive gifts born to a mother who was born on Halloween. I could tell people who were going to win games by what score. One caveat is I was not allowed to actually bet on the games myself. The gift would be taken away. So I became really popular in high school. Only problem was I never made any money on it because the kids would get the information, go bet, win a game, and never even say thank you. I got tired of that and stopped. You're not even going to say thank you to me? So I refused to do that in the future. However, I turned that into an A in calculus and statistics and probability when I actually showed the teacher how to utilize statistics and probability to bet on a game or to choose who's going to win and by what score. I ended up with an A grade in calculus. So I wasn't going to get any money, but I was going to get an A. I could smell angels. I could knew when they were in the room. I could feel things, and they would only get stronger after the near-death experience. Now, because of the near-death experience, the military academy, who had just sent me my notification through my congressman that I had been accepted because I wanted to be a pilot like my dad, said, no way, Jose. You're not coming to this academy. You had a head injury and you got to find another way to go. So, still wanted to learn how to fly, but now I had to go the standard route. And I went to biology, Southampton, ichthyology and biology school in Long Island, which is part of Stony Brook University now, New York University. I went on because they said I would learn a simple technique to heal myself and share that with other people. I would learn everything I could in the process. And I actually went back to school and became a chiropractor. But before I became a chiropractor, I was practicing for Kopat Kolim in Israel, where I was up on the front lines in 1983 helping Americans who had been wounded in Lebanon cross the border, taken to the hospitals in Tel Aviv. And I would be there without fear. People were shooting all around me. Planes were being shot down, were being hit by tanks. Tanks were being blown up all over the place. The Syrians, the Lebanese, and the Israelis were going at it. And I just didn't have any fear. I went back and I did my internships and residency in Chicago, where I was going to school. Because in Chicago, I had to deliver babies and I had to do night shifts in the local hospital in order to get my degree and my certifications. So I did EMT and I also did work with emergency room training. And my first night on the job was a DOA case. And I guess it was because of my own DOA and the fact that I had died and crossed over, I got the chance to work on my first person there doing heart pump. And because the head guy, the head MD, also worked with people who were DOs as well as MDs, he said, it's funny, you didn't have any fear of anything about that man being dead in the room. As a matter of fact, you volunteered for it. And what it was is I could see the man. I actually knew what was happening. And as I was doing the heart pumps, he came to me. He was floating above the room. And he said to me, you're the only person who's done anything to try to save his life. He said, even the ambulance crew did not do anything for him from the time his wife called the ambulance. He couldn't stay. It was going to be his time to go home. And I would do that. But the whole room lit up white light and became very peaceful. So to me, I couldn't tell the MD that I was working with why it was so comfortable for me and so natural, both working in a combat zone and sometimes on a Friday night in the hospitals in Chicago, it was also a combat zone. So I was very calm. I would go on and become a medical examiner. I would do acupuncture. I would do all sorts of things. I would practice in Israel. I would also practice in Belgium. I would come back to the United States. I practiced up in San Jose. And I would come down to Whittier, California, where I would have another near-death experience 18 years later. I would go, as part of my medical examiner's license, I became a private pilot finally. I got my own plane. I got my pilot's license, and now I was going to be paid to fly for the state of California Division of Workers' Compensation to track down patients in California, Arizona, Nevada, and Hawaii, although I never made it to Hawaii. And it's a good thing I didn't. Long story short, they told me later if I'd gone to Hawaii, I wouldn't have made it. I would have gone home. It's an exit point for me. So I don't talk about that too much. But Hawaii is a place for me to leave the planet, not to stay. The other place is the Seychelles Islands. Those are two exit points for me, and Vietnam. That's the third exit point for me. So it's a good thing I didn't go to the Vietnam War. So, long story short, I was training to go track someone down. I lived in Long Beach as a medical examiner, and I had to go to Sacramento. I had to track someone down in the wintertime. So I was practicing touch and go landings up and Lake Arrowhead, which was a wet area and it got icy. And if you missed the runway, you ended up in the lake. So I got my flight instructor with me and we were practicing touch and goes. Because the next week I was going to have to fly 750 miles by myself up to track this guy down on a small runway just north of Sacramento. Go out of the plane, track him down, go get them, do my exam, go back, fly, go back to court, and present my findings. That's what I used to do for a living. Only thing is, I wasn't going to make that trip. As I got to 12,000 feet and got off the runway, suddenly I had my second near death experience in a funny way. Well, close anyway. You'll understand in a minute. I began to get that strange sensation I had when I was behind the steering wheel. Only now I'm behind the yoke of an airplane. I nearly passed out. Now, if I was by myself practicing, that would have been it for me. I would have been dead. My flight instructor, Lisa, would come with me to put the plane down below 8,000 feet. I would regain consciousness. A year later, by the way, she would die in a freak accident as part of the California Fire Association. She was a fire pilot from the air, and her tanker plane got hit by another plane, and she would come back and visit me and tell me what was happening and why she had to go home. But these are the gifts that I started to get after my second near-death experience. I would get in the car. Once I got back to Long Beach, I was really shaky. I wore on the back of my car a thin blue line, and that was to let people know that I worked with the police department and that my brother was a cop. And so a cop stopped me and said, "Do you need help?" And I said, "Yes, officer, I do. I need to get to the medical examiner's office." So I got there. He left. He went back on the highway. I went in there and they tested me. I was bleeding internally. They didn't know from exactly what. All my tests indicate there was something on my kidney, and they sent me down to USC Medical Center where they would put me under anesthesia and overdose me and stop my heart, and I would come out for the second time of my body. But instead of going all the way home, I would be floating above my body in what's called a veridical near-death experience. This is one that you float above your body and you actually see what's going on in the emergency room. And I could tell that the doctor and the nurse doing their tests on me, they accidentally overdosed me on fentanyl. And I came out and I asked the angel, "Can I go home now? My body's a mess." And they said, "No, you haven't fulfilled your purpose and missions in life." And I said, "Would you kindly remind me what's my purpose and missions in life?" And they said, "Sure, you will learn a simple technique to heal yourself and share that with other people." Not only that, I started to get other gifts. And that was to know what was going on around me when I didn't even know the person. I could see things in people's auric field. I knew what was happening from the time that the doctor and nurse, I said, "You guys are having an affair. I know you both married to other people." Woo! Didn't go over well. Nurse left the hospital, broke off the affair. The doctor was transferred to another location. No, no. All right. As a result, the doctors had given me 9 months to live after that. And I said, "No, I don't accept your diagnosis and I don't accept your prognosis." God did not tell me I was going home. He said I had to learn a simple technique. And they were like, "What are you talking about? If you don't do this, you might as well go home and write off your obituary, make sure your insurance is in line." I said, "No, I'm going to Mexico. I've heard of things helping people with the diagnosis you just gave me." And I went and worked with the Gerson Institute and Hulda Clark, Cure for All Diseases, down in Mexico. I was both the patient and the doctor simultaneously. Came back 3 months later to USC Medical Center. The doctor said, I don't know what happened, but the results you just showed us 3 months later indicate we must have made a mistake. I said, you do realize you're talking to a former medical examiner? I go to court for a living? And the doctor shut up. My file got lost, and one doctor died. The third doctor, who was the tallest doctor I've ever seen, who was over 7 feet tall, said, you can't heal with anything except from our medicine. I wanted to punch him, but he was too tall. I couldn't reach above his belly button. I decided to go outside and start to pray. Now, this angel to be named later said you would figure out who I am sometime in the future. This technique is called Einstellen, Einstellen. And I've been using this technique come November for 20 years. And I've been helping people who've been written off by the medical community and left for dead because they haven't fulfilled their purpose and missions in life by helping them come back and figure out why they're here and what they must do. Missions and purpose in life. If the angels tell me, touch not my child, usually that's God telling me, and God voices directly in front of me, 2 feet, slightly to the left, slightly down, always comes from the same place. And so if I hear, touch not my child, then I cannot do anything to stop the person from exiting planet Earth. I'm here to help them get ready to cross over. It's considered a mitzvah to help them so that they can get prepared to cross over without fear. All right. So, what do I teach people nowadays? I teach them the power of prayer to create miraculous astonishments. I teach them this Einstellen, a simple technique to heal themselves twice a month on a Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern. Peter joins us along with, the other day it was 31 or 32 people from all over the world, 23 countries. And we teach this technique, how to connect to the source. Einstellen is defined as tuning into the source and asking for help and healing. Okay. So I start to teach people that. Then I have another technique called pushing faint matter, another ancient technique, making a person go internally from their third eye, find out where the area is with the problem, pain, tumors, polyps, cysts, bleeding, whatever, go in and push it out of their body. Like 2 weeks ago, I had a stray dog that ran up and bit our dog and then attacked me and ran his head into my knee. Ah, man, it nearly took my kneecap off. And it is still sore. But the first thing I wanted to do is go home, push out the faint matter where it'd been injured, and then the knee popped open and went back into place because he dislocated my knee. And then to do Einstellen to help alleviate the pain in my knee. And this works. So I teach those things. So power of prayer, and you've been there when I've used some of those prayers are pretty intense. And a lot of people, when I help push away negative energy from somebody, it changes their reality. So the other thing is when you're working with this reality and you're working with clients, you have to know what our world is. This world is a world of dichotomy between good and evil. It was done on purpose. God actually created this planet for evil and gave the evil this planet for their dominion. Our job is to master this reality, endure, persevere, and overcome it, and not let evil harm us. Our job is not to be bumped off by evil. Our job is to create heaven on earth, raise our consciousness to the fourth and fifth dimension, and get the heck out of the third dimension, where we need to be to work with all of the other beings in other realities, times, and spaces, as well as dimensions. There's roughly 100 dimensions in time and space, and you can go through them. I've learned how to move myself when something was bothering me out of the way by going back in towards the heaven energy. I call it a comb. Move over one slot and get out of the way of the oncoming bus. I've done it now 3 times. This is something that you learn when I work with you, is teach you how to get out of your own way. Now, you guys put people into hypnotherapy and you then talk about who they are and what they were and all that stuff. All I have to do is do a prayer, go in, talk to the big guy, big gal, and they will tell me, and I'll start to read the person's auric field. I actually see things around each one of you, especially Joanne. And I see a little bit behind Kim around her eyes. I can see these things. This is some of those gifts. I can smell the angels. Good guy angels smell like the most beautiful fragrances. It's actually a delicious fragrance, like lemon blossoms mixed with strawberries and dragon's blood, if you've ever smelled that incense. And every angel has its own fragrance. Guess what? So does every person. Bad guy angels, that's how I term them. They have shadows where there shouldn't be any, and they stink like ashtrays. Bad guys talk incessantly, mixing good with bad. Good guys, 5 words, 6 words max. They do it quietly. They give me a picture with a feeling, a heart mind connection. And that's how I know it's coming from good or God. Also, good always comes from the front, bad always comes from the back. Evil does truly exist. Their job is to destroy us. Our job's not to be destroyed. And for people who have not learned their lessons, they keep coming back until they get the lessons they supposed to. The one that we talk about, I was talking to Peter. Why do some people not heal, even though they're doing all this spiritual work, and they have to still go through surgery or chemo for some reason? Mainly is because they're here to finish stuff up. Sometimes a person has to give a person who they killed them in a previous life. They were soldiers. They were in battle. This current doctor today was a soldier who killed this person in a previous lifetime. You have to give the doctor the opportunity to heal what he caused a problem with. So the doctor, you have to have the issue for the doctor to fix it. And I see this a lot with people who've had herniations. Herniations, usually inguinal herniations, but herniations in general. If a person in this life who's now a doctor was a soldier in a previous life, whatever they caused you harm with, they have to fix in this life. And it's happened before. A woman on the operating table had a near-death experience. During a previous life, she was abused as a witch, treated poorly by actually by the people. You know, they used to wear the masks in the 1300s. They had these big things that looked like a nose of a bird, and they had all the herbs up there so they could breathe to get through the plague. Do you remember that? During that life, they abused that woman and killed her during the Inquisition. In this life, she had a rare disorder that only these 4 people all over the world could fix, but they couldn't do it alone. They had to work together to help that woman to heal. They were repaying, fixing her where they had harmed her in a previous life. Now, what about what Peter brought up was that certain people in certain astrological events had certain issues. One of them is double Pisces. The others are Scorpios and Virgos. These people have a harder time healing because they refuse to let go. Scorpios don't know how to forgive. One thing with me, if I see that you have the lack of forgiveness around you in your org field, you have only one option. You got to forgive the people who harmed you. And I had somebody from Detroit just the other day. I can't forgive them. I'll never forgive them. And then I said, don't bother hiring me because that's all you got to do is forgive them and you'll have a healing. I'll never do that. Adios. Bye. Nothing I can do for you. You got to forgive. I had somebody, Peter referred me. She was a double Pisces. Kept insisting she could not learn this technique. This was not on her game plan. Wasn't possible. But I have to help her heal because she's draining her own energy. I said, you don't want to learn this technique I'm teaching you. And yet you complain that you can't do this. No, I can't do it because double Pisces and Scorpio are stuck in not accepting something else that could actually get them out of their own way. Double Pisces, and you'll find out who astrologically they are, is because they may actually be healers. Most women who are, this usually women who do that, and they can be healers. But a healer who can't get out of their way to heal is a detriment to themselves because they will drain themselves dry. They will actually cause themselves harm. The reason I teach Einstein is to recharge your batteries every 12 hours so that you can reconnect to the source and have the divine insight, because 95% of your healing is emotional and divine insight. Only 5% of a person's healing is actually physical. And here's the emotions that get people trapped, not just Pisces, Virgos, or Scorpios. And that is, number one cause for all illness in this world is fear. 99.9% of all people are in a constant state of fear 24/7, 365. It opens the door to evil, because remember, we live in a dichotomous world. You want to open the door to evil and get something in you? That's what's going to happen. I can help somebody get rid of fear in 60 seconds. Piece of cake. Next one, overwhelm, especially overreactive overwhelm. And there are verbal frequencies for getting rid of a overreactive overwhelm. Again, 60 seconds later, it's gone. By the way, there's at least 6 different ways of having fear, and there's also 28 different fears that we commonly see. So I have a standard number that works for everything, but if that's not good enough, we also add the specific fear, like fear of flying, fear of whatever, taking tests. So there's another fear there, or fear of living in this reality during this time period. So there's a lot of different kinds of fear, and it gets to the third word. The angels tell me the reason people can't heal is because they doubt their divinity and their ability to heal. This is what the angels are telling me. Fear, overwhelm, doubt, because you must have faith in the creator, trust in a being like a Jesus being who's higher than us energetically, doesn't have to be Jesus, and you have to believe in yourself as a divine child of the creator. So if you can't, and if you doubt that, you can't heal. If you have any doubts about your healing, you won't heal. I didn't have any doubts about healing because God said, I have to fulfill my purpose and missions in life. And the first thing I learned from the angels were, don't accept the medical diagnosis. Because my first choice was, I'm not going to accept your diagnosis or your prognosis. I'm going to Mexico because I know, I just had this knowingness that I was going to heal. One of the things you must realize is that everybody has the ability to help themselves heal. Humans in ancient days knew how to heal themselves. There are many ancient techniques. I just teach the top 10 that have worked so wonderfully for myself and my clients over the last 27 years. And I wrote a book about all of the statistical data because that's my job. I was doing statistical data for court cases. So I love to teach people about those things, such as 70% of the population cannot and will not wake up in this lifetime, nor could they know God if God stood in front of them. Second, 30% claim to wake up, but of the 30%, only 2% will wake up on any given day and be able to be close enough to the Creator to understand the truth about this reality. That comes down or equates to between 25 million to 50 million people on any given day here on Earth. We go in cycles here every 26,000 years, and we go in cycles, both that are affected by things that will occur in this reality and those things that are interfered with by other alien beings that will change our reality dramatically. And we're in one of those 26,000 year cycles. You will see constant civil war for the next 7 years all over the world. Everybody accusing everybody else. You've seen it already. Christians understand this as the next 7 years, times of trials and tribulations, the times of the rapture. All that's coming to pass. Your objective during this next 7 years is to bring heaven to earth, elevate your consciousness so that you can leave the third dimension behind and enter the fourth and fifth dimension. Jesus was said he was living on Venus and he's a seventh dimension being. I didn't ask him that question, so I don't know, but I'm just telling you, people bring up these things. People that I work with, other dimensions, time, space, and realities. You have to know where they're coming from and why. A person needs to know why they need to live, especially if they haven't fulfilled their purpose and missions in life. And most people don't know their mission and purpose in life. And here's the fourth emotion they need to clean. People do not know how to forgive. According to the angels, if people knew how to forgive, they would, in fact, not go to war with one another. And they said, if a person can forgive another person, guess who's the hardest person for any human being to forgive? Any thoughts? You can't answer. You know the answer, Peter. All right.
Themselves.
Ourselves.
Exactly. That's the hardest person to forgive is yourself. But actually, no, it's the easiest person to forgive. And the reason someone gets sick is because they cause a problem or have a problem or they did something without realizing it, made a problem, and then they beat themselves up over the problem, making that problem exponential. You now, instead of forgiving yourself, now you beat yourself up. It's another way that the evil can get in the door and start harming you. All right, so what about these things? How is it I can see these things around people? I can tell people past lifetimes, what they do, why they're here. And astrologically, certain people and certain astrological signs have certain astrological experiences they must go through, including past lifetimes. Like I said, Scorpios don't know how to forgive. It took my mom a long time. The other time thing for Scorpio is they don't know how to let go of grieving. Very hard for a Scorpio. But it's number 5 on the market list as to things that can cause your body harm. Grief. If you don't stop grieving, you're going to cause yourself a heart issue. And that's what happened with my mom. And until finally one day, about 7 years into grieving for my dad, she said, I've had enough. That's it. I'm done. But it was already too late. Her heart took a hit. And she at least had Einstein to do, and it kept her out of trouble other than having to have 2 pacemakers in her earthly life. Now, with me, the moment I came back from my second near-death experience, I started to tell my mom and dad about everything about who they were in the past and why they were here now and why I was going to end up taking care of both of them. And because I was on disability at the time, because at that moment in time I couldn't walk or drive or do a lot of things, I was learning this technique and sharing this with my mom and dad. So, what happened? My mom would remind me time and time again, you're here to help me. You're here to help me. And we would have our issues dealing with Scorpio versus Sagittarian. I'm a Sag, she was a Scorpio. But my mom knew I was different. And I said, Mom, the day comes that you cross over, you will understand that in my lifetime, the next 14 years are going to be very interesting on Earth, and that it would be very tough for you to exist in this time, and you would be very worried about what I'm going to do and how I have to do it, or even the fact that I'm going to die in the process. And you know what? She came back. She came back several times. She said, hey, you got a job to do. You better get going. Oh, and by the way, when it's your turn to come up here, I won't be here, so don't look for me. See, the one thing about a near-deather is we also know our exit point in time, the space. We know how we're going to leave. And the thing is, we're aware of it. But I've also been given options. Do I want to stay on this planet? In January 20th, 2023, when Agenda 2023 from the United Nations hits, they said, would you like to stay on this planet? And I said, I'm actually given an option. I can actually go. Yeah, you can raise up to the 4th and 5th dimension and you can leave. Boop. Or we can take you home. Or You can have an alien group take you and hibernate you and put you on a spaceship until you have to come back and help the new people on New Earth establish this planet again. It's like, wow, I get options. Okay, cool. I didn't get that last time. They said, no, you didn't. So everybody needs to know their mission and purpose in life, how long they're going to be here, and the reason that they have to fulfill it by a certain time. Second group of people are not necessarily written off, but they've been left for dead and said, nothing more we can do for you. That's my favorite. And then the third group of people that I work with are people like you guys, healing practitioners of all kinds, MDs, DCs, DOs, PhDs, veterinarians, you name it. And so next year, God wants me to transition from just teaching patients one-on-one to helping doctors learn about their patients like you guys and learn all the fine little details. So I'm going to be teaching once a month on a weekend, either in an 8-hour session or a 12-hour session, some live in person, mostly online. So people can take all this information. My book grows and grows and grows. The fourth edition will have 500 pages in it. So this information can be passed down from generation to generation. And then when I do recycle and come back, I'll be able to pick up where I left off. So there's half the book is clinical material on how to use this material to help other people. You guys use hypnosis. Like I said, I don't need to do that. I can simply ask and I tune into the auric field of the person and I do that. And what the real neat thing though is they can come from Peter. Peter's told them one thing. I said, don't tell me about what they told you yet. And I will tell them what I see. And the patient says, hey, that's what Peter Wright just told me. He told me about this in my past life. I said, that's why I didn't want to know what you knew with Peter. So it didn't interfere with anything I can see around you. So this is just a gift I have. And I announce it's just a gift. And every near-deather has a gift to be able to help people in some way, shape, and form. Funny thing is, 70% of near-deathers don't want to acknowledge their near-death. Even people who are famous are now only coming out and saying, I've had a near-death experience. Today alone, there's 9 million near-deathers just in North America and Canada, United States and Canada. But yet, only 3 million will actually admit to it. And of the 3 million, less than 300,000 are starting to tell their stories. Each one of us comes back with some particular gift. When near-deathers work together, we can actually work it exponentially for the benefit of their patient client. Now, I have what's called a 508 C13, a C1A, theocentric eleemosynary, a spiritual church, actually now called Nova Tierra at Nova Celestia, New Earth, New Heaven. And it is a trust and a church. And it's in the 508 category, 501 according to the IRS, so that I can help people through a church. I have what's called a private membership association. And so I do not call what you call a patient, that's God's patients, I call them client members. And I work with them instead of HIPAA regulations under constitutional law about what we need to do is private. And unlike other 501s categories, mine is not open to discussion, nor can it be shared with other people. And like I said, a third of my clients are people like yourself, doctors and healing practitioners who want to learn more about how to integrate alternative, complementary, integrative, and spiritual medicine in their practice. So the other two things that we talk about is all these things about healing and forgiveness. I have prayers to help people forgive. I have numbers to help them forgive. I have 15,000 verbal frequencies available to help people so they can use it like medicine. So instead of taking oral medicine, you tell me the diagnosis, we'll tell you what it is, and we'll give you a number. Other things not on that list, we will help you clear your emotions in 60 seconds. I have all sorts of techniques that I've put together, and it's called eraser method, an emotional release and stress relief. It's a compilation of body code, body talk, temporal tapping, BEST, you name it. I took the best of all of those things, took it into an event that even I can do this remotely with somebody and help them get rid of emotions that don't serve them. And then actually give them homework assignments of what they need to do besides Einstein. Then they have every 2 weeks, they come in a group setting, they do Einstein in a group. They do Einstein twice a day for themselves. They come to the group every 2 weeks. Now, we have many other things, but those are the top 5 things that we work with. There's other 10 things that I don't get into, but one of them is remote telemetry medicine. Not only can I help push faint matter away from a person who's 2,000 miles away from me, I even have machines that'll do it for me when I can't have the energy to do it for them. People give me their DNA samples from their fingers and toenails because they're a member, and I can put them on the computer. The computer will tell me what's happening with them, and then we send them the healing frequencies. And for every one of my healing practitioners, I make them a 108 frequency. Well, what's that? 108 is a frequency dealing with Hindu and Buddhism that dealt with, the worry beads. Remember those things? I was in Greece. They always had these worry beads. Well, in this particular healing practice, they would have these prayer beads. There were 108 of them. And we turn that in to an actual verbal frequency that once you say this verbal frequency 15 times for 7 straight days, take a break for 1 week, then repeat it again one day the week later, 15 times, this person has the ability to send healing frequencies and prayers to another person anywhere on the planet. Healing frequencies and healing energy. Combined with Einstein, you can help your patients heal even if you don't know the diagnosis. And now, even though I know diagnosis, I don't have to use them anymore. I don't need to know that. I go in, it's nice to know what you got, so I can use that for figuring out what frequencies you need. But purposely, I stop using the earthly diagnosis and I ask God, what is it that's really causing the problem? Because this person was abused 3 times in a previous lifetimes. They were abused as prisoners of war, and they came back into this lifetime and had this issue. And this issue is why they're sick. We clear that up. They forgive the people in the past lifetime who were probably also in this lifetime, and they begin to heal. This is very common in diabetes patients. They're not happy with their lives. They're not happy with their past lives. And usually a person with diabetes has had 3 lives of abuse as a prisoner of war. And we go into their previous past lifetimes, and it turns out the person that abused them is also a neighbor or a family member in this lifetime. This is very important because I see patterns. It's part of my training as being a medical examiner is I see patterns that comes out naturally. If I see them 2 or 3 times, I start to see patterns in people about where this is coming from. And then when I do a prayer to clear negativity away from somebody, I actually walk in their auric field. And the funny thing is I can actually do it better remotely online than I can in person because some things interfere with me in person that don't interfere with me on the phone or on Zoom. This is a very interesting experience because when I see things around you, like Cindy, when I see things around you, the inquisitive mind knows that there's a light bulb that goes on behind you. Your right side has become bright. Your left side is questioning. And I can actually see tick, 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 tick. And you can actually use these things. Now you see Colin has like, hey, is this guy full of shit? Hey, come on. Hey, I don't know how to work with this. How do we deal with this thing? And the thing is, he actually is aware of it himself, and now he can use it for the benefit of himself. I can't help everybody. It's just not possible. I have contracts with 2,883 people. But if I'm going to work with healing practitioners and each of you have 1,000 clients, you can use these techniques to benefit 1,000 people each. So if I taught 10 of you, that's 10,000 people who get to benefit from this knowledge. It needs to be left behind because the people who trained me and the angels who trained me, they left the earth already. Of the 57 people that I discuss in my book, there are no lines in heaven, 37 of them have crossed over. I wanted to make sure this stuff does not get lost. So it doesn't matter in any of those circumstances that you continue to use this. This is like what Mercedes does. They get a patent on somebody, but they don't hold anybody to the patent. If it's safety issues, Mercedes is okay with it. If you take and use their patented material, just give them a license fee and you can use it, no problem. But they don't get angry with you. Same thing, use this because there's no competition in heaven. I'm not here for everybody. I'm here for a set amount of people before I return to what we call heaven. I want to make sure that this continues down for other people to use on infinitum so that when I come back, I can pick up where I left off. Peter knows this book just keeps growing and growing. And of course, I use medical terminology, but I put together what medical terminology is here and I mix it with the spiritual terminology because this diagnosis comes from this spiritual issue. And that's what your job is to open up that can of worms and start to delve into what someone needs to know. You can heal with color. You can heal with sound. You can heal with frequency, solfeggio numbers, Fibonacci numbers. You need to know what prescription is best for each person. There is no one treatment for everybody. It's all individualistic because we have many souls, billions of us. Peter, you had asked also, there were a few other things that you wanted me to discuss or cover because it's almost an hour that I've been talking. So what was it? Did I miss anything that you wanted me to cover before we move on to the Q&A? Unmute yourself.
Could you mention a little bit more about the verbal frequencies in terms of the numbers and why they're so important to express them out loud for X number of times?
All right. I have 15,000 verbal frequencies, and the man I learned this from was a man named Lloyd Meir. And it would be how I ended up in Orlando because his editor became my editor, and I ended up here. Well, Lloyd and I worked together for 8 years, and he wrote volumes and volumes of verbal frequencies that came as his gift because he had a near-death experience. Second time he went home, he didn't come back. And he worked with me and he would take and help me find frequencies either for myself or my mom or our clients that Christine Donye, who edited his book and my book, didn't know I had. So when he died, I called Christine about helping her help me edit my book. And then she said, you have frequencies Lloyd never gave me. She inherited Lloyd's book. And as a result of working with me, she'll inherit the first and second edition of the book. That's her form of payment. She will be the holder of all these other people. She's got a third person who's also donating the equipment that they made and other things for them. And she's going to be the inheritor of all this really neat stuff. And one of them is these verbal frequencies. I go over 100 of them because she's my editor and she edited that book of my favorite frequencies. But the first 4, fear. Can you eliminate fear in 60 seconds? This is the number. You ready to take it down?
Or if I could add, we'll be sending out some of the key numbers to all those who have joined us.
Right. And I think you already made some of these up for one of the other talks I've done.
Yeah. So I'll send that out.
Peter already has this, so he can send it out. But it's 8732-966-7488. Well, number one, notice it's an 11-digit code. So when I give it to you, or you see them written down, or you get Lloyd Meir's book, you won't see them in Lloyd Meir's book split apart, but for your brain remembers things in smaller chunks, 4 and 3s, 3s and 4s, sometimes 5s. So you'll see 8732-9667-488. And this is how you remember longer digits. I can remember 100 number digit by breaking them up into small chunks, and that's how my brain memorizes it, small chunks, and it sticks it all together, and I will remember the whole sequence. So you'll repeat this sequence 15 times every night, 15 minutes before bed. This will stop the adrenal rush corticosteroids that affect your intestinal tract and wake you up. There's about 38 steroids and hormones that'll affect your body in the middle of sleep. This stops it. I use this as an example. I was on my way home from the office here in Orlando, and as I was getting by an intersection of three major highways, a truck was coming from the left, a truck was coming from the right, and I'm in the middle in a little Toyota, and they didn't see me and they didn't see each other. Thank goodness my angel said, put your brakes on. Bam. Front of my car went down, back went up. They nearly collided. They bounced off each other and went their separate ways. But I was like, I almost felt like a sandwich. And I had to say this number 50 times. By the time I got home, it was 50 times later, and there was no adrenal rush side effects of fear. Because fear can mess up your body, something fierce. Knocks off your blood pressure, your kidneys, causes your gut so many reactions. And like I said, there's 38 hormones and amino acids that are affected by fear. And that's what the angel said. Fear is the number one cause for people to get sick. So false evidence appears real can be knocked right off. Do it 15 times before bed, 15 minutes before bed. Next one, 6264-8498. 6264-8498. Overreactive overwhelm. Have you ever gotten so tired from your kids, grandkids, family, business, practice, this, IRS, got to do this, got to do that, and you just like, tilt. All right? This is the number that will stop that dead in its tracks. 6264-8498. And if you notice, I'm making it into a sing-songy type of thing. 6264-8498. 6264-8498. Because now it takes a life of its own. It becomes in its own frequency. On top of the frequency you're reading, it becomes a harmonic. And I was working with a lady who was a professional piano and music teacher. And she said, you realize that when we put these frequencies together in a sequence, they have an additional frequency embedded in them. And that's what the frequency that will actually help you heal. Sort of like the Doug coils from Raymond Royal Rife. Two intersecting frequencies created a third frequency. All right, forgiveness. One of my favorites. 116-979-458. 116-979-458. 116-979-458. And sometimes, if I have to forgive someone or myself, 116-979-458. 116-979-458. Again, 15 times. Homework assignment for everybody here. Take 15 people who've caused you harm.
Scott froze.
Yep. He'll come back. I'll send these out. I'll send them to you, Holly, and then you can send them out to the group. Because I found them to be very helpful.
Hopefully he'll just reconnect.
Yeah.
Oops.
So let me just check here.
He's got to tell me what these 15 people that I'm thinking about now, what to do with them.
We're going to forgive them.
I guess so.
We're going to forgive them.
Yeah, forgiveness.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, good, good. Okay. Scott just called me and he's on the line here. He can't get back in. So he'd like to answer questions from the group. So let me just put you, so Scott, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay, and let me just increase the volume here. Okay. Anybody have any questions? Based on what he said.
Peter.
Yes.
Scott, the question is, what did you say diabetes was the person's not happy with?
Did you,
Number one, life is not sweet for them.
life is not sweet for them.
Yeah, number one. Number two, they've been abused in a previous lifetime. And that's usually been prisoner of war, but not one, but multiple lives.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. After that, it happens a lot with Cancerian personalities and Libra personalities because it usually deals with love of home, and the other one is balancing of life. So Libras and Cancerian personalities, or they can have those in their charts.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
Anyone else?
Yasmin.
What do you mean by double Pisces? Sorry, I'm not familiar with the term.
All right. In an astrological aspect within a person's chart, their sun sign is Pisces, and their chances are they're also a moon or rising sign Pisces, and it's called a double Pisces. So their north node or destiny, who they are and what they're doing, along with their sun sign, is Pisces. So when that shows up as a double Pisces, this is a person who doubts themselves and will actually sabotage themselves and not succeed because they're self-sabotaging. They are usually healers, very bright people, but will insist they can't do this or that because they don't want to. They can't. It's not part of their chart. So they are self-sabotaging. There's a double Pisces and a Scorpio. Virgo also has this in them. And it's not just their sun sign. It's also the part of the aspect of their north node or their destiny. If they have any of these in that aspect, they're going to be self-sabotaging.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Carol, you hand up.
You mentioned that you experienced heaven and you experienced God. Could you elaborate more on that? Describe what you experienced?
I mean, when I was up there?
When you were up there? He said, so he asked you, Carol, when he was up there?
Yes.
All right. Well, even the waiting room of God is more beautiful than what we have on earth. It's peaceful, it's calm. Everything is transmuted and explained through telepathy, not words. You understand in an instant, so it didn't matter a language. There was no language barrier whatsoever. The glow around people and the feeling of warmth and home and love was immense. And this wasn't even where I would be living. This is just my entrance to heaven, front door. So it is a unique experience where you have no pain, just love, and you feel divinely connected to the source, to the one, the all, the everything, and everybody else, everything else. You're part of the sea of souls. The sea of souls is where we come from and go back to. It is a huge sea made of all the souls as we come together or go apart. We share everything with where we rest and absorb and download the information from everybody else. At the same time, we share what we've learned through each of our experiences with the collective. So each of us has this body, which is a gift from the Creator. And if you were to take it as like an empty bottle, and then when they get you ready to cross over and come back to Earth, you take a little bit of that bottle, like a little dropper's worth, and put it from that sea of soul into the bottle. You then go experience life. By the time you get back to heaven again, that inside that bottle has changed because of all the experiences that have occurred. You pour out that bottle's energy, and it's shared with everybody in a uniform fashion throughout the collective. Therefore, the next time you come back to go into another body, you're taking a little bit of who you were with some other experiences from other places, times, spaces, and dimensions. You are one with all and with everything. When you're awake, there's no barriers. In my case, the only barrier they put before me was I was not allowed to know more than 38 previous past lifetimes, because those 38 lifetimes dealt specifically with this reality and dimension. And it would interfere because I knew there was a lot more to my history. I'm aware of at least 629 lives just in this world. I've been in other worlds many other times, but I was only allowed to be aware instantly of how a person interacted with me in a previous time and what I needed to do to correct it or let go of it in this reality. Once you connect to the source of all that is again and remember who you truly are as a child of the Creator, then this reality isn't the same anymore. You're not going to fight with it. Yes, you got to go with good stuff, and yes, you got to go with bad stuff, and yes, it's a dichotomous world. We're going to have good and bad. So now you're not going to get so much frustrated. You're going to use what you need to do, use the prayers of protection to keep you safe, so that your angelic beings that need to be with you will help you fulfill your reason for being. You also lose fear of death. See, good guys, people who work for the Creator, remember who they are? 10% of the world works for the Creator. 10% of the world works for the other being. For those that work for the Creator get 2 or more guardian angels with them to be with them. Those that work for the bad guy, well, they only get a half an angel. But there are people who voluntarily work for the dark side. And there are people like myself who voluntarily work for the good side. And then there's everybody in between. And then there's starseed children, people who've come, or souls that come from other worlds to help humanity grow up and remember who they are. And this, over the next 7 years, is really important. We must wake up. The angels are tired of us destroying this planet. And even other alien beings saying, we're going to have to interfere or intervene because you're just not getting it. So the objective of learning Einstein and all these other techniques I teach is so people can bring heaven to earth, our pineal glands can be decalcified, and we can reconnect to the source of all that is and remember who we are, why we're here, and what experiences will bring us closer to the source of all that is.
Mm-hmm.
Does that answer your question?
What about how you experience God?
God is everything, and God is all the things we can't see, feel, or understand. God is all that is, and all that you can imagine. That's why you'll hear me call the Creator God, the one, the all, the everything, the big guy, the big gal, it. Because there's no way to put a title on something that we are just part of the body of. We are the smallest, like, if you think of your body as one cell inside a Creator, who is inside another Creator, who is inside another Creator, this goes on infinitum into time, spaces, and dimensions. words to explain it, because it's something I learn in an instant, but it takes time to explain it, at least in English. The Creator is more than you can. It's both the dark matter and the light matter. It's the areas between gaps in cells, between neutrons and electrons, and it's the dark, empty space between here and the moon. It's both the things we can see and feel and that which we can't see and feel. And it goes in all directions, times, and spaces, and realities, and expands. At times, though, it will actually contract. And we've been through many lifetimes where it contracted, and that's what we're going through at the moment. This is a game we chose to play with God. You ever want to read a book which is interesting, explains it from a slightly different perspective? It's The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn. First book I ever read. First woman spiritual teacher in the modern day, 1923 is when her book was published. God is everything, and God is nothing. We're part of it. And it can't be put into simple terminology. It's a feeling, and it's beyond that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
I have a question. Dr. Scott, have you ever worked with animals using your techniques?
Yep, I was about to talk about that when it got cut off. I work with horses and dogs and birds and cats. And this week alone, I worked with, believe it or not, evil gets in cats and dogs and birds and horses. I will be, in 2 weeks, I'll be up in Seattle area on an island called San Juan in Friday Harbor. And there's a lot of horses up there. And I get asked to come in and work on horses. What's wrong with them? Why? Animals will talk to me much easier and better without complications than people do. People make all sorts of lies to themselves to tell them why this can't or can't happen. Animals are very simple. It deals with food, procreation, or safety. Birds especially will tell me. Cats will tell me. We had an evil spirit, actually 3 of them, in a cat this week. I have a prayer that I use that Peter has, that when you say this 11-minute prayer, you will become unbelievably hot. And you'll actually be able to pull out evil from anything around you, including animals. The horse that I was working with was a gorgeous Olympic horse. Was a show horse. It was mentally disturbed and abused. And a lot of them, usually when they're mentally disturbed, they usually were abused. And this animal became violent. He was 18 hands high. Still is. I have to go up and visit him 2 weeks from now. His name is Skyheart. Gorgeous. 4 gorgeous white legs and brown chestnut with a long mane. Gorgeous animal. Mentally disturbed. And it took me 3 days to clear this horse. Finally, I showed the owner how to do Einstellen. And the horse got loose after I went up to the northern paddock to take care of the other 2 horses, and the horse attacked her, ran at her full speed, 18-hand, 2,000-pound animal. The animal never attacked his owner before. And she called out the name I told her to call out, and the horse stopped in its tracks, shook its head, and the third entity disappeared. From now on, the horse was allowed to go from the south paddock to the north paddock and play with the other 2 horses, and started to love to work around other people. Birds will come to me and leave me messages. Eagles, especially when I'm up north in the Seattle area, will come to the window or the balcony I'm on and drop their feathers and leave me a message. Birds particularly love to tell me things because they're messengers, especially hawks and eagles. Nothing more gorgeous to see an eagle with an old 10 or 11-foot wingspan open its wings behind you while you're talking to a crowd and then drop its feathers as a gift. Problem was, the Department of the Interior won't let me take that feather home. I have to donate it to a Native American. I'm not allowed to touch it.
could you talk about a little bit more about what Einstein is in terms of Bruno?
All right. Einstein, remember there was a third being in the room that said I would learn who he was, but that his body wasn't who it was called in its name, but I would know who he was much later. His name was Bruno Grüning, German man. Grew up before World War I, was a well-known healer in his day, called a charlatan attack, refused to fight and kill or harm anyone. But this man died 2 months after I was born, and I actually told my parents that I knew that someone really special, because at age 5, I told my parents this, before I knew who he was. I said, I just missed someone really important. When I died and crossed over, the second time I realized who he was. Because my mom had seen the picture, and I said, this man had died 2 months before I was born, or after I was born. And then it dawned on me it was Bruno, and I realized he has been with me my whole life. And actually, he's been with me multiple lifetimes. He's been with me as I grow, evolve, and become closer to the Creator. And since I think of Jesus, Bruno, and Michael as my big brothers, my triumvirate, I talk to them constantly, so I'm divinely guided with my 3 best examples in this earthly world. If they can fight off the evil, so can I. So they teach me what I need to know to make sure that I can fight off evil. And if I can't, and it's too strong for me, then I call upon them to do it for me. But one of the things and one of the reasons I'm allowed to help people is because they said we have to wait till you're strong enough to do this for yourself. Because the higher up you go towards the Creator, the lower down evil will attack you. Mm-hmm. You have to be divinely connected. Now, do you have to only do Einstein? Heck no. You can do techniques, to show people how to do. Doesn't matter. But it's the favorite technique because this is the one that helped me heal. I was written off 3 times by the medical community and left for dead. This is my favorite technique. But I love pushing faint matter, and I love the power of prayer, and I love going out in nature because nature is God. And there's so many things, everything God does to help me remember who I am is always simple and powerful. And anything evil does, it's complicated. And it's always very few words. You'll know it when you get it. So I've been working with Bruno Grüning for the last 20 years. I know he's been with me before. I also know that Jesus is actually part of Michael. Michael's incarnation became Jesus. Jesus goes back and becomes Michael. And then Bruno said, you'll figure out who I am sometime in the future. However, how come I was up in a room with 3 beings who could potentially be all one being or all be part of God and made manifest? Why would I see 3 beings? Well, first of all, they told me never tell anybody that this is the only way, this is the way, and these beings are all one, because every being must figure out for themselves who Jesus is, who Michael is, and who Bruno is. It's not me to tell you that. It's only for me to tell you this is what I feel, not what you feel. Because 2 different realities can exist under the same time and space because each of us is different. But I had 3 beings to work with simply for one reason. I was not aware of different time, spaces, dimensions, or realities at the time of my first near-death experience. So I teach people, whether they're Jewish, Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, or Muslim, that it doesn't matter when you're doing Einstein if you call upon Jesus, or if you call upon Bruno, or if you call upon Michael. It makes no difference. Because the organization itself has a dogmatic way of doing it, and I'm not dogmatic. People with near-death experiences are never dogmatic. We're allergic to it. We realize there's more than one way to skin a cat. I don't really want to skin a cat. There's more to ways to one to learn something, and it still gets accomplished. So I have Jews and Muslims who love to use Michael the Archangel. I have Christians who say I can only talk to Jesus. And I have people who are spiritual because they say, I'm spiritual, I'm not religious, and they want to talk to Bruno. It doesn't matter. You can do all three. I have a Jewish guy married a Catholic woman. They live in New York and in Mexico City, and they do all three. Big whoop. It'll work. And so I teach people this technique, and you're all welcome to join me September 21st. That's a Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern time. But because you're new and need to learn the nuances of this technique and the terminology, is I insist that you get to be with me about 1:20 in the afternoon. Check your mics, and at 1:30 we start teaching. At 2 o'clock, all the people who are from already learning this technique and have done it, and they're from all different parts of the world, then will chime in with us, and your group will grow to about 30 people. But you need to learn the terms, because otherwise it's going to be over your head. You don't learn the terms, this is not a technique that will stay with you very long. So, does that answer the question, Peter?
Yeah, I think so. It's basic. Yes, yes, it does. And so I'll include information on this meeting in the email that we send out to everyone who attended today.
And could we include?
A lot of people from IANS. I work with people from different spiritual groups, and I love your group because I've been working with Peter for, like I said, about 13 years.
Could we also have your email and contact information, please,
And
Scott?
Peter, will you put that down on the email you're
Yeah.
sending everybody?
I will send that.
And for those out loud, my phone number is 760-917-2625. 760-917-2625.
Excellent.
And then my website is therearenolinsinheaven.com. My book, There Are No Lines in Heaven. You can buy it on Amazon, either an ebook or the large book. And the large book, don't throw it at anybody. It weighs 3 pounds. It's 11.5 by 8.5, and it's got a size 18 font, because when I wanted to write it, I didn't want it in small size font. I wanted 18, so I didn't need to use glasses. And since the majority of my clients are over 40, they are really appreciative of the fact that they don't need glasses to read the book.
All right.
Half the book is chapter 5. It was made for the clinical setting. Chapter 6 is the book in a nutshell, 19 pages. Chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all the spiritual things that I teach from real near-death experiences, my mom and dad coming back after their death, terms and things you need to know about the near-death and what is a near-death experience. Spiritual mishpacha. What is a spiritual mishpacha? Extended family from the heart. My teachers and people that I knew were here for me, and all of the people that I was to meet and I was told about that I was to meet and help before I left this world and completed this cycle.
Okay. Anything to add?
Anything else? Otherwise, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm sorry I couldn't finish it live online. At least, Peter, this will still be recorded, correct? It's still being recorded.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Scott. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
sharing
Thank
your
you.
wisdom.
You're welcome. I love to see it. You're going to be up in Seattle. I'll be there on the 25th of September through October 1st. I will be in the area of Sarasota, Florida on the 8th of October. I will be in Southern California on the 15th to the 18th, in San Diego and in Orange County, California. I will be in Fort Lauderdale in the beginning of November, and I will be back, I think, in southwestern Florida in December, and again, Melbourne, called Space Camp, called Space Coast IANS in Melbourne, just near Cape Canaveral, in the beginning of January. I will be doing a talk and lecture with nurses and doctors in February in Phoenix, Arizona. And if you want to know where I am, go look on my website. And if you need anything, I talked to Peter because we work together doing other stuff. And I'd love to meet more of you, share those things. And I would even like to do interviews with coming to join us for the next Einstellen Learning How to Do It on the 21st of September.
Which is free. There's no charge for participating in these Zoom gatherings.
Yeah. When I do my bigger classes, it's a weekend, that's something else. But this is only an hour and a half, 2 hours. So this is my gift to other people to learn and not to burn. So
all right.
I love you all. I thank you. Peter will send out the information we just discussed. And please, when you're done, Holly, send me a copy of this so I can download it onto my website and then use it for other people coming in, especially since I'm transitioning from one-on-one to working with doctors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you, Scott. You take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Fabulous. Very
Well,
interesting.
Peter, I wanted to ask him a question, but then he started talking about it. Was the power of prayer that he was talking about? And is that an open group? Is that what he's saying, that there's a way to join that?
Yes, absolutely. So this is the Einstellen group that meets every 2 weeks on a Sunday. And I'll send you information on it. I've been using this particular technique for the last year and a half, and I find it to be helpful. Of twice a day for 20 minutes, tuning in and just relaxing and asking for help for whatever's not working for me in my life, and to bless all those around me. So it's not religious per se, but it's spiritual, and it's a way to connect with all the help that's available to us in the non-physical realm. So
Now, how do you spell Einstellen? Because obviously
EIN
yes.
STELLEN. It's German, Einstellen. But I'll send that information out through Holly to everyone what we've covered today. So if you have any questions about this operator is standing by. So please feel free to let me know, okay?
Thank you,
Thanks,
Peter.
Peter.
You all.
Take care, everybody.
Well,
Thank
thank you so much.
Good to see
everyone.
Happy
Appreciate it.
autumn.